Alright guys, today we're going to be looking at a water heater that is giving us trouble. This is a State brand water heater, and we're going to take a look at what's causing this problem, but the pilot light won't stay lit. It's a simple fix. I want to show you how to do it today. Stay tuned. Okay, so the first thing I did was remove this cover just so I could see what was going on a little easier, and it didn't quite want to come out, but that solves the problem for me just to be able to look in there. So what we're experiencing is we would put this on pilot, we would hold this down and light it with the lighter, and as soon as we let up, the pilot light would go out. That tells me the thermocouple's bad. The thermocouple is a little sensor in here that will keep the pilot light from going out. So looking in here, okay, so I'm going to point out to you where the thermocouple is. Although it's hard to use a pointer, but do you see the little striker? I'm going to show you where the striker is. You see that little spark? Well, that spark ignites the pilot, but the long, skinny, brass-looking rod above that spark is the thermocouple. And we're gonna replace that, but what that does is senses that there is a lit flame, and it keeps the gas on because there's a lit flame. If the flame is not lit, then that thermocouple tells the gas valve to shut off the pilot gas so that you don't fill your house with gas. So it's a good thing to have, but in this case it's not working well. So I purchased this generic thermocouple. Actually got this from Home Depot. So we're going to go ahead and install it. Now this is the little rod that we saw inside right here, and this line runs out and it comes up here and it fastens right to the bottom of the gas valve. So we're going to replace that whole thing, and hopefully that solves our problem. I've unwrapped the thermocouple. It's laying right here. So I've loosened this, so I'm going to pull this out of the gas valve. So now I'm just going to pull this out and slide it out of its little holder inside that we saw earlier, and I'm going to thread the new thermocouple back through this hole and back up. So it's super simple. Okay, so the way this thermocouple is tied in on this one is a little unique. It's probably because it's a high efficiency one with this little glass window that seals against the burner chamber. So if you have this, you may want to follow what I'm doing, but you see the thermocouple comes down. It's that copper tubing that comes down right there, and it connects into this little bracket down here, and then it feeds on out. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this whole burner out in this case, so it's going to be a little more complicated. So what we're going to do is make sure we have the gas valve off over here, have the gas turned off, just kind of a safety, because this valve right here really is turning the gas off for me, but we want to be extra safe and turn that off. So we're going to disconnect the burner line, the pilot line, and we have the thermocouple disconnected already. We may need to disconnect this wire as well that runs to the igniter up here, but we'll see about that. We're going to try to pull this whole assembly out, work on it, and then put it all back in. Okay, now that I've got this disconnected, I can pull the whole burner assembly out. Now we can work on it much easier. So we see right here is the thermocouple right there. It runs down this copper tube and connects right in there. Just trying to show you the principle of sliding the old one out and then sliding the new one in. Then we're going to route it back over here, put it through this slot in this grommet, run it through the hole in the door, and then we're going to run it back up and connect everything up to the gas valve and put it all back together. One thing you want to be aware of though is that this is where the pilot light is, So we need to get this thermocouple up high enough so when the pilot blows out of here, it hits the thermocouple and keeps it warm. That's what tells it that it's okay to leave the gas on, is the pilot flame hitting this rod. Okay, we slid it back in. We're gonna put that up in there and thread this piece up into the gas valve. We'll snug that up in a minute. So now we got our pilot that goes back there and our thermocouple that goes back over here. So I'll connect all those up, close up the door, and we'll see if the whole thing works. Got everything put back together. The door's closed up. Only thing we don't have on is our little cover, but we'll put that on in a little bit. All right, so I already tested this and it works, but I want to show you the process. So we turn it on to pilot. Hold that down. While you're holding that down, you push this button, and that should light the pilot. And you look through the door, see the pilot. Now I'm going to let up on that button right now. You can see the pilot stays lit. That means our thermocouple is working properly. Now we're going to turn the gas on. We've got our burner. So everything's working well. Now I will tell you one thing. Since we took everything apart and had this line exposed to the air for a while, before I actually lit this the first time, I held this button down for the pilot for a good minute to flush all the air out of here, out of this little line, before we tried lighting the pilot with this striker. So if you don't have a striker, if you have an open system to where you just put a match or a little torch in there, then it's the same process. But my point is that this can get a lot of air in it when you take it apart. You need to hold this button, pilot button, down for a while to bleed that air out. All right, guys, this is a successful repair. Got a gas water heater that's going to give us another good 5 or 6, 7 years of service still. Hope this helps you guys to repair some things at your house. Best to your families.